Can I welcome Auntie Nola Hooper? She tells me it's the Lee Tarmaria, Panuhu and Tairana Tarpana clans, is that correct? And I'd like you all to learn that and make sure you know that by the end of the conference, please. Can I invite Auntie Nola up to welcome you to country? Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, everybody. Hoping you are well today. Such a beautiful day. And I'd like to thank Anglicare for the opportunity to welcome you here today to Aboriginal land. I acknowledge the traditional owners, Lee Tamarina, Panaher and Taranatapana clans. They hunted and gathered and cared for their land and families for thousands of years prior to colonisation. Right down here. I acknowledge my elders, past and present, and acknowledge our community who are no longer with us. They are sadly missed, but will remain in our hearts and in our thoughts. I acknowledge my Aboriginal community of today. They work and talk with our elders about our heritage, our culture, arts and dance, to be passed down to our future generations. I acknowledge the wider community with respect and friendship, who share this great country with us. Mental health is a challenging journey for those with this illness, also their loved ones, their families and their friends. Speaking from an Aboriginal perspective, an Aboriginal person with a mental illness may require culturally appropriate services for their recovery. There is a huge suicide problem in our Aboriginal community across the board. So promoting mental health to get better understanding and breaking down stigmas that is often attached to mental health illnesses. Awareness, building and strengthening relationships, working together, achieving equality in good health and well-being, changing lives and appropriate initiatives for good health and mental illnesses. Aboriginal service workers meeting and talking to elders and Aboriginal community services. Mainstream partners in recovery, Tasmania, and the 11 practice principles, how it contributes to how we can be the best we can be. I borrowed that today from the partners in recovery. I think it's brilliant. There is hope for mental illnesses. I thank the 5 organisations involved in this 3-day conference. I wish you every success and great outcomes, and please have a safe journey home. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Auntie Nola, for your welcome to country and also for acknowledging our elders past and present. Can I, on behalf of the people here, present you with a gift of our appreciation. Thanks very much. Our conference this morning is being officially opened by 3 people who can share their own experiences with you. I'd like to introduce Zach Lockhart. Thanks, Zach. Alida Meadows and Kath O'Brien. They'll tell you their own stories and make you welcome, I'm sure. Please welcome them to the conference. First of all, Zach Lockhart.
Good morning, everyone. I'd also like to take this time to acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional custodians of this land, and also to mental health consumers, past, present and future. While in the business of welcoming people and acknowledging others, I would also like to acknowledge the paramedics, nurses, doctors, counsellors and psychologists who have helped me along my journey without passing judgment or allowing stigma to cloud their vision. At the age of 16, I suffered a really extreme panic attack and I was taken to hospital in an ambulance by paramedics who, while telling me it was most likely a panic attack, they couldn't be sure without being properly assessed by a doctor. When I arrived at the hospital and after being reassured and calmed down by the paramedics, I was told by a worried doctor that I was undoubtedly having heart problems. That's a great thing to say to someone having a panic attack. And that's one example of how one simple mistake can have a hugely negative impact on a vulnerable person. Another example is when I was in high school. I suffer from a mental illness called trichotillomania. For those who don't know, it's basically getting the urge to pull out your own hair. My maths teacher at the time decided to question me about this in front of the entire class, asking why I had no eyelashes. Because of that and other factors, I went from being a student who was top of my class to being someone who had panic attacks walking into a classroom throughout college and university. Of course, there have been positive experiences as well, such as the support I've received, the support I've given to others, and the growth I've seen both in myself and other people I've come to know throughout my journey. I'm currently studying diplomas in counselling and community services, and I give motivational speeches as well at schools, conferences such as this, and other gatherings. I also work casually and volunteer within the community. Recovery is a journey, and it starts at day one. But over the next 3 days, you'll hear from many experts and have lengthy conversations with one another. You'll only get out what you put in. And remember, please, that you have the power to change lives, for the better or for the worse. We're all here for different reasons, for career or personal development, as a work requirement, perhaps a personal interest. I challenge you all to think and remember why it is that you're here. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. What an inspiring young man. Can you welcome Alida Meadows, please? I think many of you will know Alida, but she'll make herself known to you in her own way.
Thank you. And thank you, Auntie Nola, for a wonderful welcome to country. And Zach, very inspiring words. I'm here officially as a carer representative, and indeed I am a carer of a son who was diagnosed with schizophrenia more than a decade ago, which was very heartbreaking to me as unfortunately I have a family history of many people with mental illness, including myself. I have a brother with bipolar. I had an aunt, she's passed away, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia. We've had depression, we've had suicides in the family. I have depression and anxiety disorder. I work in the mental health sector. I kind of live, sleep, breathe mental illness and now I'm thinking more along the lines of mental health. I don't want to talk too much about my personal story or my family story. I just want to say that I've seen great results when my son is connected meaningfully in the community. And my belief is that as long as we give people who have mental health issues the opportunities to lead a connected life, we are making a big step forward in helping them on their recovery journey. And that means secure and supported housing and connection to community. And I don't think that we're always travelling along those lines, and I think we need to, in this period of state reform especially, to encourage our government to recognise the importance of those two areas in particular that they've been neglecting for a long time, and which are difficult and which cost money, but I believe without those two things in place, we are actually impeding recovery for people with mental illness. I welcome you here. My hope is that all of us, including me, learn a lot from these 3 days, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of interesting and stimulating and inspiring stuff. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Alida. And third, Kathy O'Brien, who will also tell you her story. Thanks, Kathy.
I also would like to acknowledge, can you hear me? I acknowledge and pay respect to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional original owners and continuing custodians of this land. I also want to acknowledge the people in the room who have lived experience of mental ill health and those who are on their recovery journey. Being a consumer of mental health services for over 20 years, I have seen and experienced many changes for the good of people with mental ill health, yet there are still gaps in services with many falling between the cracks. I became ill in 1987 and had to return to a small town in Tasmania for the support of my family. There was no mental health services in this town and I relied on the local GP for medication. He admitted to my mother that he had little knowledge of mental illness and just pumped me full of drugs that had a known side effect of weight gain, and I was suffering major depression, and he would state that I needed to find a job and lose weight. We had no idea of where to go for help, and it was like a big secret that only a privileged few were given information. Unfortunately, this still can be the case in a lot of situations. Through depression, I lost all contacts and was afraid to leave the security of my home, and isolation became a big problem for me. This went on for a couple of years until we moved to Launceston, where I was able to access help from outpatients at the LGH. I had many admissions to Ward 1E, and that is where I met and befriended many people who are just like myself. By talking and sharing knowledge, I heard about a shared accommodation where I could relearn my independent living skills, joining on recreation programs and have staff on site that I could talk to and who would support me with doctors' appointments and accessing other services. This was the beginning of my being able to manage my illness and grow as a person. When a person experiences mental ill health, they cannot and do not recover alone. Basically, people need people, and a problem shared is a problem solved. There is a need to access outside support, even for the basic needs, such as budgeting and shopping or being accompanied to doctor's appointments. Even something as simple as listening can make a difference in the life of anyone facing the challenges of day-to-day existence. One of the things about mental illness is that you don't just get sick and take a pill to get better. It affects everything in your life, and therefore, in order to recover everything in your life, it has to be addressed. Relationships and friendships are affected, with many of us isolated and alone. Our self-esteem and confidence becomes very low. It's almost impossible to hold down a job. In the past, when someone was diagnosed with a severe mental illness, we were told that things would never get better and not to expect things to change. We were over-medicated to keep us quiet and slow our thinking. Through trial and error, I have learned over the years that I have to take responsibility of my illness and be proactive in looking for solutions that arise with the challenges of coping with mental ill health. My life began to change when I heard about a medication that was being hailed as the wonder drug of the 90s. It has major side effects, however the benefits outweighed the negatives, and I chose to go for it. I distinctly remember saying to myself that I would give it all the muster I could and that it would make or break me. It was the only option I felt I had at the time. Within the first 6 months, people started noticing and commenting on how well I seemed. I would always answer that it was the medication. The more I improved, the more active I became and no longer spent days in bed. My head seemed to be coming out of the fog, and I found myself being able to make conversations more easily. Instead of being awkward and self-conscious, I felt more confident and had a more positive outlook than I had ever had in my life. It seemed I was comfortable in my own skin. It had been years before I could verbalise what had happened and was happening to me, and that was when I began healing. I found part-time work and assessed a few agencies where I got outreach and a support worker. I began working towards some goals and with their help achieved many of these, but it was not until I was approached to facilitate a Hearing Voices group that I learned about recovery, as I had no concept that someone like me had a chance at a better life. Since I began the Hearing Voices group in Launceston, I have not only grown in confidence but have understood more about myself and my illness. I am able to share my thoughts and experiences on recovery, and I am a mentor to others. These groups have become very important to me, and I am interested in learning as much about mental illness and recovery and dealing with voices as possible. It has become a passion in my life and gives me a sense of purpose. These groups are worldwide and are proven to have helped thousands of people. In the time since starting these groups, I have witnessed people improving within themselves. I see people who have struggled for many years stepping up and mentoring others in the group. Everyone has knowledge and empathy, and it is a wonderful thing to see the trust and friendships forming. As important as the Hearing Voices groups are, I realise that there was a need in the community for support for people with mental illness that weren't voice hearers but experienced the same challenges. I approached my employer with an idea of a recovery group. This group has now been functioning for 3 years and is still going strong and is very popular. Members within the group all display a caring and supportive nature. This group has now developed into an advisory role with management and other services, seeking our help and input into issues that affect consumers. Mental health today is becoming very exciting. Recovery is a word that is used constantly now, and we are realising that we can regain our lives and contribute to society. Professionals and consumers are considering a holistic approach to treating people suffering the effects of mental ill health and the challenges that come with it. Unfortunately, stigma is an ongoing problem for people battling mental illness, not only from the community but from family and close friends. Some believe that our illness is drug-induced and others believe we're dangerous. I believe that the more of us that do recover and stand up and talk about our experiences and put a face to this illness, we will help reduce this stigma. In the past, when someone was diagnosed with a severe mental illness, we were told that things would never get better and not to expect things to change. We were over-medicated to keep us quiet and slow our thinking. It is imperative that a person's hope is not taken from them. It is not until you have lost all hope and then found it again that you realise how important a little word like hope is. My hope and vision for the future is that I'm able to reach and help as many people with mental ill health as possible and continue to build on the work that I'm already doing. By standing up and saying, yes, I suffer mental ill health, but I am the same as you and want the same things, that maybe I can educate people to see that we are normal and we can and do recover. I hope that I can inspire others to take a risk and go for what they really want in life and dare to dream. What I would like you to know today is that recovery should not be for the select few, but a right for everyone. For years we have needed a service that aims to better support people with severe and persistent mental ill health. People with complex needs and their carers and families need services and supports from multiple sectors. Partners in recovery are working in a more collaborative, coordinated and integrated way. They are committed to people thriving outside of service system and the role of community and family and the things that we all access in our day-to-day lives are important, and it is great to see so many people here today who are not from service land. The ultimate objective of this 3-day conference is to improve the system's response to and outcomes for people with severe and persistent mental ill health. It aims to bring together people to hear their ideas and experiences and contribute thoughts on how we in Tasmania, all of us, and to be the best we can in responding to the needs of people with mental ill health and their families and friends. We encourage you all to share your ideas and stories so this can be part of the transformation. It is with great excitement and anticipation that we would like to declare the Practice, Service, System and Community Transformation Conference 2015 officially open. Thank you all.